everyone, Scott Hansen here from NFL Red Zone. I hope you're checking out 1 hour of 5 Yard Rush, one of the best podcasts on NFL football in the UK.
Here we are, Rush Nation, back again for the Fantasy Football Bible Part 2 for Week 16. The last 6 games, the late slate, Sunday Night Football, Monday Night Football. So, going to go through these games pretty rapid, quick fire for a Friday morning. No, it's most people's last day at work. They don't want to sit here listening to me ramble on. And there's also some really close games, but there's not loads of fantasy relevant players in this sort of last segment. So, we're going to rattle through these as fairly quickly to talk about each game and what to expect and the rankings on all these players. We start with Seahawks versus Vikings. Vikings favored by 3, over under 43.5. These both feel like really good lines. I do think if Geno Smith is out, that line for the Vikings will rise significantly. So if you do bet the betting lines, might be good to just jump in on that one sooner rather than later. I have Sam Donald as my quarterback 9, Geno Smith at 26 because I don't know if he's going to play. If he does play, I'll move him up my rankings, so I'm sort of hedging right now with where he is. Aaron Jones is at 15. I've currently got Kenneth Walker in there because I do think there's a sneaky chance he does go. But if he doesn't go and Zach Charbonnet doesn't go because he's also questionable to go, then we do have a situation where you're going to need to pick up Kenny McIntosh. Now I've gone ahead and added him in all my leagues this week, so these situations are constantly moving. One, I'll try and update on socials as we go through the week, but I'd be adding Kenny McIntosh on all my teams this week in case Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker don't go this week. Justin Jefferson's my wide receiver 3 this week. Jackson Smith and Jigba is at 18. Jordan Addison's at 25. I've got DK Metcalf at 29 because he's questionable. If he shifts the questionable tag, I'm actually going to move him up, and I'm going to put him somewhere around about 24, maybe even above Cooper Kupp in 23. Because he's got the best matchup on the board this week. And I know he's been struggling. The form's not been good and confidence hasn't been good. But I feel pretty good if I needed to move him up this week. I feel there's a pathway to him putting up significant upside. I think he's a good upside play this week for sure. TJ Hawkinson is the only tight end I'm worried about in this game. He is my tight end 5 this week. It should be a good week for him. The Vikings are my DST3. The Seahawks are at 21, so don't need to worry about them. And then as for the kickers, Will Reichard, who's back, he's at 9. Jason Myers at 18. Not the worst game for Myers. He's kicking indoors. It should be a decent one for him to take advantage of the conditions here. Next up is the Bills versus the Patriots. Sorry, he's not kicking indoors because he's at home, but he's kicking at home, so he knows what he's kicking into. Bills versus Patriots. Bills favored by 14. The over-under 46.5 is just ludicrous when you see lines like this. I mean, sure, I'm fine with both lines, but it is absolute madness when you get teams favored by 14 points. I mean, what that tells you is that it's going to be a blowout on one side, so there's not much on the New England side we need to really pay attention to, and it's all really about what Buffalo do and how important they are for their rankings. So, you know, Josh Allen's my quarterback 1 this week. Drake May is at 21 this week. It's the running games that will be interesting. James Cook's at 13. I've leveled him down slightly. He could get nice volume because the game's out of touch, but they could also pull him for like a Ty Johnson and Ray Davis if this game gets out of hand. So I've capped him at 13. I feel pretty good about that. You'll see other places that will have him higher because of the game script, but I think they're going to take care of him. They know they've won the division. They know they're going to be at worst like the 2 seed, but they're trying to get to the 1 seed. So if they're winning a game and they're winning it comfortably, I don't think they're going to pull. Like, I think they'll pull him from the game. Wide receivers is at 25, so on the fringe of those wide receiver 2 places, running back 2 places. But again, he's probably one of the better fantasy plays for New England this week. Khalil Shakir's at 31, good matchup, can take advantage as a volume-based play, but I just don't think he's going to get the end zone, so won't have him any higher than that. Amari Cooper blanked last week, so he's at 45. Don't love him this week, and not something I'm desperate to sort of put in any lineups that for matches that mean anything this week. As for the tight ends, Hunter Henry's at 13 and Dalton Kincaid's at 15. I expect Kincaid to go after missing out last week. But again, no significant upside for either of those players there unless Henry starts banging in touchdowns. And then Buffalo Bills are my number 1 ranked defense this week. This is a good week for them. I think they're going to strangle and they're going to bully the Patriots quite significantly. I know they've waited a long time for this, so they will do for sure. And Tyler Bass is my kicker 5 this week. I feel good starting him, but just watch the weather in Buffalo. If it's tricky, then that's just something to keep an eye on just prior to the game. But I feel pretty good about him. Dolphins 49ers, both of these teams are on life support when it comes to their playoff chances. Both of them, I think the loser pretty much is guaranteed to be eliminated this week. Dolphins are favored by 1, over under 44.5. Both of these teams are really sort of off the boil, and it's hard to really kind of love what either of these teams are doing offensively right now. So I've kind of got them all in a bit of a meh range. Brock Purdy's at 15 after a poor performance last week. Tua Tagovailoa is at 16, but the way that he is sliding headfirst into things, don't be surprised if he gets injured at this point. Devon Achan's at 9. He's probably the star performer in this game. Isaac Guerrero, who's currently questionable, so keep an eye on that. He's at 18, but I just don't think he's got the same juices like a Jordan Mason has, but he'll be good enough to start in most games. But again, he's probably not going to be your winner, right? It's going to drive you home. Tyreek Hill's at 17. He's questionable, but I think he will go. John Jennings is at 19. Deebo Samuel's at 42. I don't feel comfortable starting Deebo Samuel in any lineup. So this is one of the biggest Deebo Samuel fans. So it's a hard thing for me to say. The tight ends here are really key. Kittle's at 3 and Johnny Smith's at 4, and there isn't a better tight end in football right now than Johnny Smith. So, both these tight ends will be the big fantasy stars along with Achan this week. But I'm not loving the defenses here, so I've faded them both, with the 49ers being the best of the two at 17. Miami down in the 20s. And again, same with the kickers. I've got them at 15 and 16. Like, start them if you can't find anyone better. But at the same token, don't expect a lot of love there from them. Another game that's a bit of a meh game is the Raiders and the Jags. Both these teams have been pretty poor this season. They are struggling. Raiders are favored by 1. I don't quite know how that has happened, but here we are. Over under 40. It's the lowest over under of the week. And that's totally fair with the way that these offenses are performing. I'd probably say the Jags nick it, but again, I don't think this is a game that most people are going to have much in sort of investment in from a fantasy perspective. So Mac Jones at 25, Aiden McConnell's at 31. Again, super flex quarterbacks, but again, I'm not desperate to start either of these guys. Josh Jacobs, no, because he's not in this game. The leading running back here is Travis Etienne. He's at 28. Tank Bigsby's at 36. As for what happens here with the Jags, I mean, I've got Abdullah at 46 and Mattison at 51. I'm going to read the injury reports. They're both not on them. I don't really know. Like, again, there's so much turnover and injury, and they're not really running the football well. If they go ahead, they might run it better. There's a chance that one of these usurps. I haven't picked which one, but either way, I don't think any of them break into running back 2 range. So I would be their desperation starts at absolute best. If I had to put a penny on it, I'd probably say I'd be leaning towards Mattison because he had the role earlier in the season, but Abdullah did get quite a bit of the passing down work, and it might be that they have that two-way tandem of Mattison running the football and Abdullah doing the passing down work. So yeah, not one that infuses or excites me all that much, unfortunately. Hopefully in your championship semifinals, you don't need to worry about that situation. Brian Thomas is at 12. He's the only wide receiver for the Jags I'm interested in. And then Jacoby Myers is at 28. He does have a questionable tag. If he clears that, he could move up a couple of spots, but he's in wide receiver 2 contention this week. As for the tight ends, Brock Bowers is my tight end 1 this week. Brenton Strange is at 9. He is questionable, but with that volume he got last week, I've put him inside my top 10. It's a brave call, but anyone who's getting 12 targets at the position, I'll be buying into that significantly. I don't want to start these DSTs. It might be a low-scoring game, but I don't necessarily have confidence in either of these DSTs. And because it's a low-scoring game, I don't want the kickers either. So I'll be fading those significantly. Sunday Night Football is the Buccaneers versus the Cowboys. The Buccaneers are favored by 4. The over-under is 48.5. I think the Cowboys have improved. Cooper Rush is in a bit of a rhythm and a rhyme right now, and I think he's doing a good job. But you'd expect the Buccaneers to come in here and take go one step closer to winning the division here, and you expect to do it with their great balance in passing and rushing. So I expect that to happen. The over under 48.5 is strong, but I think it's probably doable, and I would expect that to happen. But it will all be about the fast start and maintaining the control for the Buccaneers. They always seem to let things go in the second quarter, and they come back and have a stormy second half. If they've really dominated this game, it'll be because they've dominated the first and second quarters. They've gone in with a big lead and they've shut this game out. And it could actually, therefore, dip the fantasy points in the second half. So, one to keep an eye on. Baker Mayfield is my quarterback 5 this week. It's a good matchup for him. Cooper Rush, who has impressed me, he's at quarterback 22. There's definitely worse quarterbacks in this league. In Superflex range, I'd feel pretty good starting him this week. Bucky Irving's at 10. He's always going to have a questionable tag. He's got an ongoing back injury, but he looked great last week, so I'm not too worried. Ricky Dowdle's at 20. This is not a great matchup for him against the Buccaneers. Game scripts and everything else is going to go against him, so I don't love it. Rashad White's at 23. He has upside for me, especially in the passing game and getting those receiving touchdowns. So I really like him as an option this week, and that you can feel pretty good starting him as well. As for the wide receivers, CeeDee Lamb's at 5. He's got a questionable tag. I think he'll be fine. Mike Evans is at 6. I think they're going to force feed him targets, especially with the incentives in his contract. Keep an eye on Jalen McMillan. He's at 36 at the moment, but I actually think he's got one of the better matchups again this week. So he can exploit that, and he'll have wide receiver 2 upside. So I like him in the flex this week. I think he's a good option. Tight ends are going to be interesting. I actually think Jake Ferguson is an interesting play. I've got him at 10, but I think he's got upside. The Buccaneers aren't really particularly good at stopping tight ends, so that could be a really interesting one. K. Dotton is injured, but he's also losing targets to Jalen McMillan, so he's at 14. I'm not in as big a rush, but if you've got him, he's your only tight end. He'll be fine this week. He's just not going to carry a lot of upside, especially with Jalen McMillan cooking. Buccaneers at 12. I think they'll get the ball, they'll get some turnovers, and I think they'll do fine, but other teams will have better schedules. I think Dallas have been a lot better this week. Cooper Rush has been pretty good at protecting the football. Cowboys at 20. I think they'll give up points. They might get some turnovers that might boost them up a little bit higher, but I'm not chasing that one. Chase McLaughlin's at 3. Brandon Aubrey's at 4. Again, I think both these kickers in indoor conditions will put up good points and both find the start this week. Monday Night Football is the Packers v. the Saints. Definitely not one I'll be staying up for because the Packers here are 14-point favorites, over under 42.5. I actually think that the Saints are better than this, and as a result, I don't think I'll be taking the Packers on their current form at 14 points. I'd take Saints and the points. 42 feels a good line, but I think it'll probably be a bit closer. But I think the Green Bay will dominate, but I just don't think it will be 14 points in the end, even if it's some garbage time that will happen. I think Rattler and Marcus Valdes-Scantling will get something going in this offense. Jordan Love's at 10 this week. It's a good matchup for him. Spencer Rattler is at 27. I think he's going to probably start slow and then grow into this better in the second half. Josh Jacobs is my running back 3 this week. This is a great matchup for him. I've currently got Kendra Miller at 29. I'm waiting to see what happens with Kamara. It's hard to call if he's actually going to play or not. But I'm not quite in the loving space that everyone else is with Kendra Miller. I think he's a good player. But he hasn't shown us anything yet, and he could have a really, really good performance, but the game scripts against him, they're going to need to get the ball downfield quickly, and they've got weapons like MVS to do that. So I think that's where they're going to go and utilize that in the game more than, say, going ahead and going with running the football with Kendra Miller. Marcus Valdes-Scantling is my highest rated receiver in this game. He's at 24. And for me, he is in line to put up a decent performance. If you're looking for those desperation plays, he's the best one this week by a mile. I like him this week. I think this is a good matchup. Jaden Reed's at 37. He's got a horrendous matchup. I don't like his matchup this week. He's been really off the boil. Wide receiver 45 over the last few weeks, so I'm just staying away from him. Romeo Doubs at 43. I just don't think that passing attack has been as consistent. So I actually think that Tucker Kraft will be the guy to get the fantasy points going here. He's at 11. I think the fantasy points will be straddled along. Christian Watson will get in some as well, but I'm not confident to sit on one of them. But if one of them does get the hot hand, they will obviously then break out. But for me, with this sort of game, they don't need game records, they need control. So I think Tucker Kraft will get the majority of the work here. But I think the rest will be spread across quite equally. Green Bay Packers are my DST2 this week. Feel pretty good about them. I think they'll put up a good performance. And then when it comes to the kickers, Brandon McManus is at 8. Blake Griffey is at 30. Just don't think I think if he gets points, it'll be extra points. I don't think there's going to be many field goal attempts for him. That's going to do it for the Bible this week. That's going to do it for all the Week 16 preparation. Hope you found this useful, and I look forward to catching with you in Championship Week. Until then, as always, keep rushing.